Well, hello, welcome once again to Pale Blooms and Beyond. Thank you for joining us today. And if you do like the programming you see here and the musicians and artists that I talk to, please hit the like button below and also subscribe to the channel. A lot of the musicians on here you won't see on other formats, maybe written interviews, but maybe not the visual video interviews. And all of these artists have their own story to tell. Maybe some were a little more popular back in the 60s and 70s, but then a lot of them have seen a resurgence and are still recording and playing and live today. So anyway, thank you for joining us. Lorin Rowan is an American singer-songwriter and multi-instrumentalist. After high school in 1970, he began playing with his brother Chris as the Rowan Brothers and were signed to Columbia Records, releasing an album in 1972. In the mid-70s, adding brother Peter, the trio recorded 3 albums as the Rowans on Warner Asylum Records. In the 80s, Lorin played in rock-reggae band The Edge with Jimmy Dillon and often shared the stage with Huey Lewis and the News. Lorin's songs can be heard on various TV shows and in film, and have been covered by the likes of Ricky Skaggs and Marty Balin. In 2019, he was the Milley Award recipient for Creative Arts in Music. Mr. Rowan currently plays in Rattlebox, a progressive Americana 3-piece, and his latest project is Deep Blue Jam, a mandolin-based jam band. And my guest still plays live with his brother Chris as the Rowan Brothers. Life has come around full circle, huh? Well, welcome, Lorin.
Hey, nice to be here, Greg.
Thank you for taking time out to visit and talk with me today. Well, take us back to the beginning. Where were you born?
In a little town outside of Boston, Wayland, Massachusetts.
Oh, okay.
About 20 miles as the crow flies.
Okay, all right. If the crow flies straight, right?
Right. It's not likely back in the 60s.
Right. Well, do you have fond childhood memories as far as like you remember hearing music in the household when you were young?
Yeah, well, I'm the youngest of 2 other brothers, older brothers. Peter's the oldest, Chris in the middle. I'm the baby, the youngest. And I just remember their vibe as brothers in the household that I was just getting turned on to records, the record player. And they're holding albums in my hand. Like Peter would bring back, being the oldest, he's 9 years ahead of me. So he was hip to the era with Elvis Presley coming in and the Crickets.
Oh, yeah.
All these records, Muddy Waters he had. I mean, it was all fascinating to me. I was just like the duck drawn to water. With my brothers, we all have music in us because our parents, they love music, yeah, but they didn't, it wasn't a profession. But I know my dad, he loved to sing. He was in a couple of choirs, a church choir. He liked to act. We've seen old photos of him doing Mr. Roberts.
Is that right?
You know, the classic albums my mother had put together have these great pictures, which is great for the memories of like growing up, that as you get older, you go, wow, when was that time? To be able to go back and see things, and it spurs your own memories of what it was like to grow up,
yeah,
in a small town. And that was back in the 50s and 60s. So it was pretty exciting. The music was great, though. The records were just fascinating. So we're playing, as we're growing up, I'm getting handed a tennis racket as my brothers were practicing just playing guitars around the house. I remember sitting on the front porch and a tennis racket was imitating.
Yes.
So, and then the next thing I remember, and as time moving along, ukulele. And it was interesting. I remember holding it left-handed. Oh. Now, not really left-handed, though. I do move my left foot. If I was playing sports, I would probably kick with my left foot, although I'm right-handed. So maybe I'm ambidextrous, as they call it. But I remember holding the ukulele that Peter handed me left-handed. And he said, oh, no, try it this way, the other way. Uh-huh. And so that's, he right-handed me in a way, because the way the guitar's tuned. Not that you can't play left-handed, as Paul Marty, Jimi Hendrix, you name it. There's plenty of incredible left-handed. I'm always amazed how they could do that. From the ukulele as a 4-string, I graduated to Peter handing me his harmony tenor guitar, which is a beautiful. I wish we still had it. All those guitars, we passed on a lot of guitars through the years, and now I think, wow, that's 40, 50 years. Those would be pretty cool guitars to have. But we still have some great guitars now, of course. But the tenor harmony guitar was my main forte for a while. So I learned how to play 4-string before I did 6-string. And when my brother Chris came, when I was trying to move on to the 6-string, I was holding the 6-string going, oh no, what do I do with these other 2 strings? Because I was so used to, probably like 10 years old. And then he showed me an E chord, which Peter had shown him along the way. How you make an E chord on a 6-string guitar. So I remember, okay, so that was cool. That was a rush of learning how to chord. And then from there, we learned all by ear. So we were lucky to have an instinct for being able to pick up chords and experiment like that, which is kind of fascinating, really. I mean, a lot of musicians, that's how they play. We're not classically trained.
Right.
So I think
were either one of your parents musically inclined at all?
Yeah, getting back to my parents for a second, my dad, he loved to sing.
Okay.
And my mother could play the piano. And we'd hear it very sporadically. She would play night and day or something like she would play really good. We'd find out later as we moved out to California. I'm jumping ahead, but she would send little tapes of what she's doing at the house. I'm playing the piano today, boys. And she was a tape along. And I was like, wow, she's playing night and day. She had the chops, but she was also artistic. She, I think she went to a school of design at some point. I forget which one, not Sarah Lawrence, but something back east, on the East Coast. She did decorate furniture and wastebaskets with some really nice paintings or, decorations. I just remember thinking, oh, that's cool. But when I look back now, I go, she really did have she was very talented. And so these were talents that I think got infused in us because, Dad liked to sing. And they'd have family or neighborhood gatherings. And this was during like the 60s, late 50s, early 60s, where the show tunes more and plays My Fair Lady, Camelot. My dad would love it. He would sing Camelot to me in the kitchen. He may be working on the dishes or something because he liked to do that. He liked to clean he kept the clean. Nothing like
Camelot to get you
in an industrious. Me in the eye, he would look at me and start singing to me like he was Richard. I would go, yeah. He would act it out. It was really kind of fun though, and I thought, yeah, that's great. He's having a good time. And so we would get paraded around. I remember being the youngest. Peter probably by then might have been out of school or out of the house. But I remember, we'd be paraded to the guests. Oh, hello, there's Lorin. And we'd go upstairs and they'd be having their hors d'oeuvres and their cocktails. And the quiet evening became this roar of them singing. So they loved that, like the early house concert. Before it was a house concert. It wasn't a concert. It was a sing-along. They played the records and they all loved it. I mean, I could see the enthusiasm of music appreciation.
Yes.
Well, like we were slowly, the 60s rock and roll was becoming youth. It's now embedded in our DNA. It's about to take
that picture behind you. The Beatles.
Yeah,
I'm reminded of the Paul McCartney. They had the piano. You probably know this story, and they would all gather around the piano. And just have sing-alongs and that kind of thing in their house when he was younger. Yeah.
That picture of the Beatles, I don't know how clear it is, but it was taken at Sgt. Pepper's release. And it's a copy of Linda McCartney's photograph of them, caught at an amazing moment. where
Right.
Paul and John are slapping each other high fives, and Ringo's. I think Ringo and George are a little out of focus, but it's just so cool, so iconic, really. And the pictures to my right are, or my right or my left, depending where you're sitting. My brothers and I.
Yeah.
And we have some amazing stories from being in the music business for many years. Well, let's see. Going back to my parents for a second. So here we are, getting older. I started to pick up the mandolin, and Peter was bringing back folk music. So he went from having a band called the Cupids, which was a Crickets kind of band, like Buddy Holly and the Crickets, rock and roll. And they even had a single that was so exciting. He brought it home. They went and recorded it in the city in Boston and brought it back. It was like, wow. And it got played like hit or miss on one of the stations in Boston. It was so thrilling that we were like, God, he's got a record.
Yeah.
One side was called Crazy Joe, which was this rock and roll. I met a guy named Crazy Joe, rocking and rolling wherever he goes. Really cool, kind of Chuck Berry influence, Buddy Holly. And the other side was this dreams song about dreams, a really pretty ballad. But I just remember, okay. And then after Peter, he started to get into the folk music scene, and there was this club called the Club 47 in Boston, a famous club. It's called Passim now, but back then it was a big center for folk music. Everybody played there. Bill Monroe and the Bluegrass Boys. When Peter joined them, they would come and play there. Siegel Schwall Blues Band. Well, you just name anybody. And it was a coffee shop, so they didn't serve alcohol, right? And they said it was cigarette smoke and coffee and tea and cookies. Peter would take me there, and I would hang out as the younger brother. He was just like turning me on to what he was getting to experience, and I would get to see it from my 11-year-old or 10-year-old point of view. And I remember I'd fall asleep before the night was over there, just because I was a little guy, young guy. But when he would bring back the folk music, and then it started to be bluegrass. He brought me a mandolin that he had gotten somewhere, I think in Ohio, which I still have too, by the way. I can go get it if you want to see it.
Sure.
Junior gift. Yeah, here's this beautiful Gibson Jr. A. Gibson.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure it's very old. It's 50 years old at least, but it's got tone. I'm using my pick. Let me get a pick.
Okay. I think probably the first time I ever heard a mandolin was Rod Stewart.
Oh yeah.
Probably my first experience with that.
I found a pick.
Okay.
As you can see, it's rather large.
It is big. I thought it was just close to the camera, but you pull it back, it is big.
It's a large pick. Pick of the crop. So. Still got really good tone. I use a different one now, but this is a classic. It still records really beautiful.
It still plays, yes.
I was 12 when I started playing this. And then as the years went, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but David Grisman was our producer. When Chris and I'm jumping ahead 6 years now when I became 18. But well, David was our producer. He showed me this great scale that really enhanced where I could go on the mandolin. That whole thing is a swinger. It's a whole thing in there that's bluegrass.
Bluegrass, I was going to say.
It takes you into a world of how you can end up incorporating that warm-up scale and that tempo. So I use it all the time, and it's really been amazing. I'm still learning the mandolin, and I wouldn't say I'm an incredible mandolin player. I would say that, but I'm competent enough to use it.
You're adept at it.
I use it today in a rock setting too.
Yeah.
mixing it in with
Yeah.
reggae, rock, blues, and stuff. It's kind of fun.
See, I like to see instruments like that incorporated into pop music.
Yeah,
I like that.
and I also I can put it down. What's cool is when I just took this out of my closet, it was encrusted in dust. In its case, I thought, that's an old instrument for you.
That's
been out, and it's like, thank you for bringing me up again.
right.
Just over here. Back here. And okay, so
well, I want before we move ahead. Oh, go ahead. Did you have something else?
No, I have all these instruments I can show you, but I don't want to jump ahead.
All right. Well,
at the
before we get up to David Grisman, let me ask you: were the Trespassers? Was that your first band?
Oh yeah, good. Thanks. So they're 12 years old. I'm learning how to play guitar. 13, 14. I'm in high school, and geez, I think it was even before high school. It was junior high school, so I was probably 13. The Trespassers. This guy, Joe Bianchi on drums, and I can't remember the guitar player's name. Rob. I can't remember who was. It's kind of bones. I was closer friends with Joe Bianchi because he was a drummer, and he knew that I could play guitar. So he said, "Wait, we need a guitar player for our band, the Trespassers. You want to join?" I said, "Yeah. What is it?" We play Ventures music. I said, "Cool." So I was learning all the Venture songs. But at one point, the guitar player, he was going more like the band leader out of the three of us. We need a bass. Because he was showing me you can play the bass on the guitar. And then he was going, we really need a bass.
Right.
So like I went to a music store, Sudbury, across from Wayland. Another 20-minute drive, 15-minute drive. Beautiful. This is a countryside. We were lucky to grow up. It's suburban, but this is the old revolutionary area. There's Wayland, Concord, Mass. So it's incredible. Pilgrims coming to Boston, New England. It was really a cool historical place to have that kind of history to it, which added to our incredible love of nature, because we could walk out to this town forest behind our property, our land, you know what I mean? And it was property that we grew up in, that our grandfather had built the house, and several on our street in Wayland. And it was very very exciting to be able to. Yeah, we were country boys, so and we'd go into the city was like a huge experience. Like, wow. So,
I'm sure a lot of that was inspiration later on for songs.
Oh yeah, I've written many songs. That last piece I was playing a little bit of, it's called Swamp Grass, which is my backyard where I grew up. If you walk down behind our property, you'd end up in the swamp. Always like out of the swamp. This little bridge that would get you over a little river there, a little creek, a brook. That's what it was, a brook. With this black mud. Yeah. We'd wear our hip boots. I'd put on hip boots and go and stand as deep as I could in the mud. And go, I'm not wet.
Hey, you say creek, you don't say crick.
No, New England, I mean, I don't have that Boston accent really. But I think my mother had more of it, but she always tried to make the boys, I say the boys, my brothers and I, she would try to instill in us manners because we were guys, or like our dad was he was more of a country gentleman. And, we always have these great memories of our mothers. If I said to her, godmother, she would go, I am not your godmother.
You're not your godmother.
Yeah, I see funny things like that. I went to the store to get the bass, to look at a bass. But I tell you, at the time, it confused me. I thought, what?
Yeah.
Fat 4 strings. And in my ignorance, I thought, I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to play that. I don't know how to play that. And I was so stupid because now I play bass. I love the bass and I love what bass is all about. But I learned that later on. So the short-lived, the Trespassers was mostly instrumental, but I said, I sing. They go, no, we don't sing. Like young guys don't sing. It's like, that's not cool. We because they don't know how to sing. But I was already singing, so I brought in She's Not There, by the
Oh,
Zombies and the Kinks. Oh,
you
tired,
really got me. Oh,
tired of waiting.
tired of waiting.
So, I mean, I must have been
Right.
just 13, really.
Right.
It's that British invasion had come in.
Yeah.
So I was introduced. I remember playing the canteen and singing. I got to sing those songs. That was really kind of fun. So I broke the ice for the guys. You know, we went beyond the ventures.
Right. Did you happen to see my interview with Chris White?
Not yet.
Okay. Well, if you get a chance to, when you have time.
Oh, I will.
Very interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Have you ever come across a song that you heard the first time you heard it was not the original? It was by somebody else.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
Yeah. Walk Don't Run. My dad used to listen on his hi-fi when we were Herb Albert and the Tijuana Brass. And I still love that stuff.
Yeah.
And they did a version of Walk Don't Run. That was my first time hearing that. So for the longest, I would think, well, that's the version. I mean, that's the epitome, you know, that's it. And then I found, you know, the Ventures and I heard theirs and I'm like, you know, it makes you kind of, you know,
Funny, yeah.
yeah. I go, wow, okay, now I see why, you know, the original, I see the germination of it and where it really came from, you know.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
There's many. I can't think right off the top of my head, but
Yeah.
no, I found that too. I go, oh my God, here's the original. Oh, that sounds. Yeah, Chuck Berry's really cool. If you for just basic rock and roll, I hear the Beatles. I mean,
yeah,
Chuck Berry was more Chris and Peters. By the time the Beatles came, I was kind of more, and I was hearing Chuck Berry through the Beatles.
right.
But I love Chuck Berry, but I would hear them do it, and I thought, oh, wow, that's a cool song. I was like, oh, well, that's Chuck Berry. Oh, right, of course. Then you Chuck Berry song. You can see why people like the Beatles and why they were so enamored with that music and so infectious. And
oh yeah,
the roots of rock and roll. It's really cool.
Yeah, and then Chuck, you know, traveling when he go to England, he wouldn't take a band with him, you know.
Oh yeah,
he would just pick up, you know, musicians there,
anywhere,
you know? Anywhere and everywhere. That's right.
Well, Michael McDonald has a great book out right now about his life, and he grew up in St. Louis, and he would, in his early bands, they would back Chuck Berry, and he said Chuck Berry, well, he got paid in cash at first. He would look at the crowd and talk to the promoter, and he'd go, no, there's more people here than that. And then he had a way of, Chuck didn't have to pay the musicians if they were fired before the end of the show. So the way Michael McDonald, one by one, they get fired before they go. He's out there by himself, and he's like, "Good, I have to pay them."
Fire them all, and then he just has to take all the money.
Classic. You
know? Yeah, that's great.
Reading his book, pretty amazing too. A recent one about his whole life. He was quite a character.
Oh yeah.
Quite a character, but a great I mean, his songs, incredible story songs of rock and roll. The beginning, you know, Elvis was great, but he didn't write the songs, so you didn't get his personal writing thing. You know, Lieber Stahl or whoever wrote those great songs. Undeniably cool.
Right.
But yeah, so Elvis influences. What else can I tell you? So. The Trespassers. Yeah, then I started my own band as I went into high school, I befriended this other girl, I was the president of my class. I somehow fooled everybody that I would be the best person without a big speech or anything. I think it was just going from 8th grade to 9th grade, but I put up I remember my promotion was this banner that I made. I put up in the library, "Get going with Rowan."
Oh, okay. Okay.
It has something to do with my success as being president of my class. And I thought, wow, well, that's cool. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, well, what am I going to do? So I met this student council meeting before the beginning of freshman class, and this senior girl that was there, she was part of the social science, or each grade had social presidents, treasuries and stuff. And she was a singer, and we hit it off as really good friends. And I said, well, I play music. She goes, oh, I sing too. And she goes, oh. So we started getting together. And then I said, what's your sister? She plays cello? She goes, yeah. So we got her sister involved,
Oh,
and it turns out my friend Maddie C. Fontus, Maddie McNeil, when she was unmarried, her boyfriend was a neighbor. It lived in Wayland, so I got to know him, and we became great pals. And so I had my own little band with them.
oh, okay.
And Peter is in a band called Earth Opera.
Yes.
Out of Boston. I always refer to it, and we called them art songs.
Right.
Because it was a style of writing that Peter embraced then that was really these incredible kind of art story songs. They weren't your typical pop songs.
Right.
They had some really cool, great lyrics.
Almost progressive
Yeah.
before progressive was in. It was almost,
yeah. And they had some great gigs. It was very big influence. We'd go to like the Club 47, or they play these, this is back with, there was a lot of activity with the civil, the Vietnam War was going on and stuff. So there'd be some heavy shows based on talking about the war and stuff at churches and stuff, benefits put on. And Earth Opera was pretty theatrical too. I mean, Peter at some point would put his head in the bass drum as he would be singing this song he wrote about the war called American Eagle Tragedy, which was a take on what was going on in the war and how, it's just cool stuff. As being a younger brother too, just really loving that. And so as he was recording, I brought him a tape of me with my band. Yeah. And he was on Elektra Records, and he played it for his producer, Peter Siegel. And God, the guy loved it. Lo and behold, I get a call to my parents, and I listen on the other end of the line. Yeah. Because I heard my mother or father say, "Oh, hello, Mr. Holtzman." Jack Holtzman was
Jack Holtzman. Wow.
The president of Elektra Records. And they were saying, "We would like to bring you down to New York. We'd love to sign your son." God, a record deal? I'm like 15. So we went in and made these demos.
Yeah. Well,
and
back
Peter
up just
Siegel, his producer, and his great studio live. I have my digital editing that I'm going to clean it up and have it for whoever wants to listen. At least incredible live 2-track, 23 songs in one afternoon with my cello, electric guitar, who was switched to bass, my gal singer Maddie on harmony. So I had really cool harmony. She could sing above me, so we had these two tenors. So my voice hadn't changed yet. Yeah, I've got these tapes that are like oh my God, talk about a photograph of your voice. I've got it on tape, and my voice had not changed, so it was this high register. Needless to say, we went to New York and got to meet with the president, and they wanted to sign us. So they said they'd send a contract. So when they sent the contract, it only wanted to sign me. Oh, okay. I felt really bad. I thought, because I thought, well, what are my friends though? Well, these are my pals. So I tried to say we want to do the whole band, and I think they kind of, it never came to fruition, and nobody stepped in. I mean, my father wasn't a music guy going, "Come on, no, we got to do this," Yeah. And my older brother Peter, I said to him, "What do you think? They don't want my band. They just want me." And I'm not saying, I told Peter this. He went, "I told you not to." Well, just don't do it. He just said, you're still young enough. You might, you could evolve another year or two. You're still, you never know. Something else could come along, which is what did happen. But so that was my first taste of like, oh my God. Yeah. I could have made if I'd had direction, or influence from my parents a little, but they were not. That was not their. They were from a different era of musicians. You got to get a real job. Right. So they were getting pretty impressed though, seeing, well, they're making music, and I got support from them for that. I mean, support emotionally. Like they were like, if that's what you're gonna do. I mean, I did good in school. enough that I graduated with just the high school equivalent, not equivalent, that's the wrong word. I had enough credits. I didn't take like my last year in high school because I was outperforming with my other piano player at this point. After I graduated from freshman year, by the time I was sophomore into junior, I was playing with a great piano player, Bill Elliott, who lives back east Boston. He's got his own swing orchestra, phenomenal piano player. But we hit it off. We would go see Earth Opera together. That's where I met him, at an Earth Opera gig. And I said, oh, we should meet up. He was a year ahead of me at Wayland High School. But we hit it off, and we made some incredible two-piece arrangements, my songs with him playing incredible piano. And he's a great arranger now. He was always back then too. And we actually took a bus down and stayed at David Grisman's house with his wife at the time, Jill Grisman, in New York, on our pilgrimage to get a record deal. We went and cold called, what's his name? John Hammond Sr. I guess CBS Records. Yeah, we went in and we went up. We laugh about this, Bill and I now. You bet. We took a bus down from Boston. We were going to camp out at David's house because we knew him from Earth Opera. It's before we actually worked with David on our own thing. And here's the secretary. Hi, hello. Do you boys have an appointment? We said, no, we were here to see Mr. Hammond. She went, well, just a minute, boys. And she went in, and boy, he came out. Hello.
He did.
Came in, hands, come on in.
Yeah.
It's like we cold called him. She was like, Mr. Hammond, there's some young boys out here that want to play you some songs. And so he was really friendly, and
he was welcoming.
We played him some of our demos. We didn't play for him. We didn't have it set up that way.
Yeah.
He was in his office, and he gave it a listen, and he basically encouraged us, but he gently said, it sounds like you're onto something. I would keep working on it. You know what I mean? It wasn't like ready. But we were we felt like, wow, we just acknowledged that, okay, we're on the right path.
Right. He was encouraging. He was encouraging. Yeah.
Felt like, whoa, we did it. At least we got through.
Right.
After that episode with Bill Elliott and I, that period, around another year later, Bill and I are still playing, and David and Peter, Earth Opera had dissolved. It ended.
Okay.
And David had inherited some money from his mother passing, which gave him a little bit of some capital, I guess you call it, to start a little production company of his own. So he was putting money into his own production company, which was kind of unusual back then. It was like, okay, well, I'm not doing it through a regular record company. I want to start my own, which is very David to this day, even now with his acoustic.
Even today.
He was onto it back then. And my brother Chris had recorded David had heard a song of Chris's, brother Chris, as David was making what he called, I'm just going to call it a record, but it was a variety of artists, Maria Muldaur, Jack Bonus, some other people I don't remember exactly offhand, but Chris Rowan, a song of Chris's, he was going to be on it. So he recorded the song with Chris and put Chris on a salary. Chris had come back from his trip to England before that. He went to England to see if he could get signed on Apple Records. And he had cool things happened. That didn't happen, but he did get some amazing meetings and stuff. You'd have to ask him about that, of course.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Did that information too, if you want to talk to Chris or Peter too. But it was really cool because here we are. Chris was playing for David, and we thought, oh, he's got a production company, and he was trying to hold Chris as one of his writers that he was going to produce. And then Bill Elliott and I went to David's Weymouth, Massachusetts, south of Boston, to meet with him and play him our stuff, because we were looking to get a record thing. We, done the John Hammond thing, and now we knew that David's doing this record company. We thought, well, maybe he could help us. Maybe we could get, we looked up, these are older guys, right?
Yeah.
And already had experience. So yeah, we went to David and played for him, and he loved what Bill and I were doing. But he also said, you know, have you ever thought of play? A couple of days later, he said, you were thinking about it, but he and his agent, Richard Lorin, who was an agent that worked for the Doors and stuff, and had met Peter and David through Earth Opera. He was sort of David's partner in his production company, and David was saying to us and Richard, they thought, have you ever thought of playing with your brother? I said, oh yeah, well, Chris and I, we've played since we were kids, you know, we're just 4 years apart. So there's a little, when you're that age, you're in your own kind of group level, you know?
Yeah.
Now it doesn't matter. Now it's like you could be playing with somebody 20 years younger and you're still a group.
Right.
Or older. And we played for, you know, Chris and I at one point, flashing back, when David said, have you ever played together? Yeah, we do Everly Brothers songs, and we do a bluegrass duo for a while, which I thought was kind of fun back in the early bluegrass days. And it wasn't something that we stuck with, but we still have it. So I guess we did stick with it. We have it in our roots, especially a couple of different records we've made with Peter. We've delved into our roots more than the rock and roll side of things. Right. But so David, anyway, he suggested we try out, we want to play with Chris, and we thought, well, let's try it. So we got together with Chris, me, Bill, and we hit it off. Chris would play his songs, I'd play mine. We'd sing harmony. Then we had three voices with Bill, so we were hitting it off. So we had this concept going that David was trying to mastermind, how do we shop these guys? Because we've got this group, and we started recording demos and stuff in Boston area. And meanwhile, Peter's in California already, playing with C-Train. Okay.
Oh, right.
He's already there, and I'd been to California that winter, February 1970. Chris had been out there a few months before that, and Peter was living there in Sausalito. And when I went out in February, shortly thereafter, our dad passed away in April of that year, and that kind of spawned a really cool song, a beautiful song that Chris wrote, inspired by our dad's passing, as a love song, really, you know, for your father. And it just, those kind of things, as a songwriter, you get hit by emotions. You can write something if you're open. Yeah. If you're, you know, in that creative world. Right. That's kind of what we grew up. We've been nurturing that since we were kids, really, being around all the time. So songwriting became an outlet for,
yes.
We all have
those juices started flowing. Yeah.
So by the time, getting back to that, after we had this demo going, Peter's in California. David's talking about, we should either go to England or the West Coast. And he said, I'm going to take a trip to the West Coast because I'm going to play with this band, the Grateful Dead. We were like, oh yeah, I kind of heard about them. I knew the Jefferson Airplane because they'd come through town. They had the hits.
Yeah.
The Dead were still pretty funky.
Yeah.
On record, right?
Right.
So we didn't know anything about them. We were more Beatle oriented. You know, we were impressed. Sgt. Pepper had come out, and just the whole Beatle catalog was like, the Beatles were still a big, it was 1970 though, so they were kind of right on the way dissolving, but their influence was huge, right? So David goes to the West Coast to play on the Grateful Dead's, I guess it's American Beauty or Working Class Dead, which one, I'm not sure, maybe it's American Beauty, but he played on Friend of the Devil.
Oh, okay.
Something else. So he had known Garcia back in the bluegrass days before. So when he came back, he kind of gave us the rundown. Like, I think we should go to the West Coast because there's this place called Marin County. My friend Jerry Garcia lives out there. And
wasn't it, I was trying to think, wasn't it Black Mountain Boys or something like that? Jerry Garcia.
I don't remember. I don't
something similar to that.
Yeah,
Black
I
Mountain,
know that.
His bluegrass, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I read about it too, and I love anything about it. But anyways, Peter was already on the West Coast, and by the time we moved out there, C-Train had moved back east.
Oh, okay.
And then they went to England to be produced by none other than George Martin.
Right.
Trains, one of their, I think, albums maybe together.
Yeah.
In that configuration of the band they were in. So we moved west instead of going to England like the band like Jimi Hendrix or America You know, it's often a go to England. You should go to England, you know, because it's like you can break out of England. That was very possible with the whole British invasion had become huge. And now, you know, it was a very lucrative and busy music world.
Yeah, yes, it was.
Fashion, Carnaby Street, you know, it's just incredible. So we go out here, we moved to the West Coast. And along the way, we met with Marty Balin. Richard Loren knew Marty Balin from the Jefferson Airplane when they would tour on the East Coast. Marty became an incredibly good friend. And we would get together with him sporadically over the years. And really in his last few years, before he passed away, we had connected with him when he lived in Florida, as Chris and I played with this great fiddle player who has passed on, unfortunately, about 5-6 years ago, Sue Cunningham. And we started another, well, I call it Dixie Chuck, because we had me and Chris, and she had this whole bluegrass, phenomenal fiddle player.
Yeah.
And we had the 3-part harmony with a girl on top. So I would jokingly say, I think we're like Dixie Chuck.
Chuck.
Instead of Dixie Chicks, right?
Instead of chick, yeah.
But my point was, I'm jumping ahead, but so with Grisman out there in California and us meeting with Garcia was incredible. I mean, meeting Garcia for the first time, he was just such a great energy, and his whole philosophy about music and extended to like what life is, why we're ticking, was like really like, yeah, go for it, music, go for it. You know, I mean, so he was real positive vibe for us. So we would make demos around here in San Francisco, and we were trying to go for a record deal at some point. And Richard Loren knew David Geffen down in LA, who was just starting his own company called Asylum Records. And Richard sent down a tape to him, and he got interest. He said, well, why don't you come down? We'd like to hear these guys. So we went, wow. So we made a trip down to LA and sat in David Geffen's office with his partner, Elliot Roberts. Who, these are guys that were booking Neil Young, Stephen Stills, Crosby, Stills and Nash, Crosby, Nash. And David had a young artist. He says, this is my newest artist I'm working on. It's a guy named Jackson Brown.
Oh, okay.
And he showed us the album, and he was ready to go. And so he had us play for him a couple of songs, and he loved it. And he said, I want to sign you guys. And Ahmet Erdogan happened to be there.
Oh, okay.
What do you think of these guys? He goes, when are you going in the studio? For us, we're like, oh my God, the dream is happening. I'm 18 years old, going on 19. You know, couldn't believe, like, yeah, this is what I was growing up to do. I wanted to do. So we're down in LA, and within a day or so, we did have help from, we hired the help of a music lawyer named Stuart Gordon, who worked with the Grateful Dead. So Grisman's connection with Garcia kind of tied us in with some of the local, who were the big high-end executive, not executive, I mean lawyer, legal people that, you know, you wanted to have on your side. So Stuart was very good. So Stuart calls us and says, got some interesting news. Clive Davis is in town.
Okay.
I hear you at the Beverly Hills Hotel. I'm like, oh, I thought we were going with David Geffen. Oh no, let's go play for Clive. Maybe there'll be a bidding war, which there wasn't a bidding war, but Clive did off. We played at the Beverly Hills Hotel for him.
Yeah.
He and Chris acoustically, he loved it. He thought he heard the haunting melodies, and he liked the songs. And, you know, we were young guys with a lot of energy and exuberance of wanting to make a music career, like anybody at that age, or younger or older, whatever. When you're inspired to be doing that for your life, right? So all of a sudden we had a choice between. We didn't really have a choice. Yeah, we did have a choice. The deal was going out to one of these. Mind you, it's 1970, and there's these health food restaurants with guys wearing sushi, white robe clothes, avocado sprout sandwiches, wheat bread. Like, wow, like this is like the new age was
right.
That whole that was definitely part of the counterculture.
Yeah.
Eating at one of these on Sunset Boulevard, the Source. I think it was called the Source. I just remember that now. But brown rice, and I mean, if you wanted to go healthy, and we were all kind of thinking, oh, that's the way to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Munching on our avocado sprout sandwiches. Jeff, and he's like, well, we're ready to sign. And then Richard Loran says, well, Clive offers 50,000.
Yeah.
David had offers 25,000 for a record.
Oh, twice as much.
So I've offered twice as much.
Yeah.
And Geffen said, I'm not going up. Yeah, that was my deal.
Yeah.
Okay. And we're like choking on our sandwiches. The innocent artist sitting there with our business dealer.
Right.
The guys, Brisman and Loren being the manager.
Right.
Brisman was more the producer, so he was probably letting Richard speak. But I remember Richard saying that. I remember swallowing.
Yeah.
Feeling the vibe that we'd been to Death house, taking a hot tub with it. We've gone to the hot tub. We've taken a spa at his house in the pool.
Yeah. Yeah.
We needed some marijuana, and I definitely Grisman and Loren. We all smoked pot.
Yeah.
But we would ask, and it was like, hey, can you get us some pot? And go, yeah, I got some pot here. We've been to his house and sort of courted with David and had this cool relationship. And David had even said, as I found out later through Jackson Brown, many, like 50 years later at the Kate Wolf Festival up in Napa, California, Jackson was playing there. We went and sang with him, Take It Easy. I think there's a video out there. I don't know.
Okay.
Social media, but I saw it somewhere 15 years ago for a while. But he had said, oh yeah, when Geffen asked me, should I sign these guys? Yeah, I told him he should. I didn't. You're kidding. Wow. So Jackson Brown had played an influence on Geffen to reassure him, like, yeah, these guys are good.
Yeah.
Jackson had heard us too. So getting back to that sandwich day at the Source, we ended up going with Clive Davis. We got an incredible offer where we could produce it ourselves, which was, you couldn't use outside producers or engineers. You could use outside producers, but not engineers.
Okay.
So we circumvented all that. We got some amazing artistic control.
Okay.
So that began our first album.
Well, we'll talk about that, the recording session. So yeah, go ahead and talk about it.
Yeah, where's my album? Here's a picture. Here's a picture that.
Okay. There we go.
This became a billboard.
Yeah.
That they put up on Sunset Strip. Can you see it?
Yeah, yeah.
But it has a quote from Jerry Garcia on there.
Oh, does it?
Their music is that good.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he did add that he said they could be like the Beatles.
Yeah. Oh.
So that really,
How was it? How was it seeing your picture up there on Sunset Strip?
Well, that was a friend that took that for us.
Uh-huh.
I don't think I was there when it was up.
Okay.
Which is too bad.
Yeah.
I mean, if I was, I don't remember. I have to ask Chris that.
Mm-hmm.
But our friend that we grew up with, he was in Wayland. He said, "Oh, I've been in LA. You can't believe your picture." We went, "What?" We heard it was going to go up. But anyway, Garcia's quote was well intended. I guess it was kind of like a way to hype unknown artists, and critics didn't like that. But that's part of the game, I guess.
Yeah.
But so we made this great album with David, and it was kind of like a Sergeant Pepper. We had our own engineer, Billy Wolf, and we started off playing with some of the demos we'd made with Garcia and Bill Kreutzmann, and even Phil Lesh on a couple of the songs.
Oh yeah,
demos that we played for Geffen.
Yeah,
later for Clive to hear, besides us playing live. But so when we made the record, we had Garcia play on pedal steel, is what he was playing with us, not guitar. So we had the incredible chance to have Garcia playing his innovative style of pedal steel.
Yeah. And
it appears on that first album. It ended up really on just one of the main cuts because we changed songs. It took us over 6 months to make the record. Well, we wanted to take that long. We thought that was cool. Right. We were searching for perfection, the elusive. But while we were making that record, we also wanted a different sound than the kind of the California looseness that we were getting up in San Francisco. We thought, well, God, we love some of the Beatle records a lot. And we thought, we can't get Ringo, but we thought, oh, Jim Keltner, because he was another guy that had been playing with John Lennon and George Harrison. So we got Jim Keltner, to Grisman's credit, I think, him and Lorin, they got hold of him and they flew him up, put him up in Stinson Beach where we were living, out at the beach, and went into Wally Hyder's studio with us a couple of days and cut some amazing drum tracks and 2 or 3 songs. It was really great. Yeah. And it added a whole other level of style. It was LA, but it was English. It had more of that English influence. You know, our engineer, Billy Wolf, had been in a band called the Fugs out of New York, but he knew all about Jeff Emmerich and had studied. He was like one of those guys that he went for those kind of sounds that the Beatles were getting. And he would study that Glyn Johns stuff. He knew all about this. So he would incorporate that into our sound, and we made some really cool.
Yeah, I was going to say there were some nice orchestral arrangements and production.
Yeah.
On that album, I really liked that album. I wanted to mention a few of my favorites and maybe get your memory, feedback, backstories, anything like that, if you can remember. The Best You Can, that definitely has a Beatles vibe.
Yeah, isn't it? Yeah, melodically. I mean, I know that I always tell Chris that too. Well, that's kind of like Jealous Guy.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Sometimes it's hard to understand, but then it goes off in his own thing, which, everybody's influenced by something. And, you to this day, you're going to hear, if you're not sampling somebody, or you're getting sued because you actually stole the song.
You're going to.
There's little tags. I go, oh, I heard an Eagles song. I thought, well, that's the same tag as Try to Do the Best You Can. There's a song, the Eagles, they're the new boy in town.
Oh, the new boy in town. Yeah, the new kid in town. The new kid in town.
Yeah, or the Tequila Sunrise. And anyway, those kind of melodies, they're just turnarounds that you can't really, unless you're stealing. I think it has to be a certain amount of length. Anyway, those are stories that are going on all the time. Tom Petty, right? With the guy, Sam Smith.
Right.
Lifted my song, and that was a lot of
exactly.
I guess you got to have the guns loaded to go in and fight something like that.
Yeah, you do.
But anyway, those stories you can look that up forever. There's tons of. But what was I? Oh well, Do the Best You Can. Yeah, that ended up. I wish we had produced it with strings on it because it was such a beautiful ballad. But
yes, it was.
We kind of went through and we did it that live, pretty much. Not with Jim Keltner, our other drummer, local drummer. And we just thought the live sounded, we didn't want to be too over orchestrated. So we had some live tracks on there. But in retrospect, it got released as a single, but I think it wasn't the first single. And who knows what happens in the promotion world of that. But it didn't become a hit song, single or anything. But I was thinking it could have had a little orchestration because it was in a pop. It had beautiful melodies, so it could be enhanced. But who knows? We might redo it again.
Right. Oh, that would be nice. That would be nice to hear.
But it was a great song to do because it was pretty live. Yeah. Everything on there's live. My guitar part, actually pretty live. Chris singing, it's just one take. He could sing high parts too. He had his voice. He still sings like that too. But
I think some of the best records are like one take.
Yeah.
Not overly dubbed.
Oh God, yeah. No. That's the fun too. If you can just go, oh great, that's it, boom.
Right.
And the more we keep, as I still record today, still feel like that.
Yeah.
Don't overwork something.
Right. To death. Yeah, you could. You can do that.
And what else do you like from that album?
Oh, I'll say, "Lay Me Down." That's a beautiful track.
Yeah, and that has the orchestration.
Yes.
Albeit synthesized strings, but that was a cool synthesized. They were Mellotron strings. So you're the early stage of sampling, on tapes.
Right.
the Beatles had. So we somehow got hold of one to use in the studio, which had those great, an advanced sound. It wasn't a cheesy synth sound.
Oh yeah. Oh, I hated that. That
Right.
early.
That was good as
yeah, exactly.
You'll get that sound if you want it.
Yeah. I like the Mellotron. That's another.
Yeah, that's what I meant. The Mellotron was made with tapes.
Yes.
Of tape loops, which was really cool, fascinating.
Right.
That was back then, you know.
Yeah. Moody Blues was the first band.
God, yeah.
I remember hearing that.
Well, we were well aware of that, and we wanted. That's kind of what the strings sound like on "Lay Me Down." They're of that high string orchestration. It's pretty cool.
You dig it. And then another track, "Mama Don't You Cry."
Yeah, now that was one that Chris had written after our dad had died, and he hadn't had it finished. For me, he goes, "I got this song." I said, he needed another verse, and I just came up with right there on the spot. My verse was, "Mama, don't you grieve, he will always be around. Come the evening, reach the morning, for the lost will all be found." Kind of gospel-y, not intentionally, but just that's how it felt. You know, when it was pretty raw feeling when a parent dies and you're a teenager, you know. And Chris's line was, "Mama, don't you cry. Even though your dad is gone, you'll be waiting in the garden where the seeds of life are sown." And then mine went, "Mama, don't you grieve, he will always be around. Come the evening, reach the morning, for the lost will all be found." It's kind of like, you know, he'll still be with us. You're trying to make sense of that emotion, which is really tough when you're the first time it happens to in your own family, you know. So anyway, that song became one that Jim Keltner played on. And Brisbane, in his incredible sense of arrangements, got Buddy Emmons to play pedal steel on it. I think he was.
Right.
It's a great pedal steel on that.
Right. Yeah.
Just the arrangement of the song actually had a pedal steel solo in it. But when we played the song, Clive Davis was going, "Where's the record, boys? It's been 6 months." So he came out to Stinson. Loren's wife had made these shell beads because we were really kind of living the hippie commune.
Yeah.
In a good way. We had our own studio in a house that we transformed the garage into Sacramento patio. We were living an idyllic kind of, wow, Stinson Beach is a beautiful stretch of beach in Northern California, Marin County. The biggest of its kind, really. Probably as close as you're going to get to more of a feeling of Mexico when it gets real hot.
Yeah.
Occasionally it gets super warm. It gets Mediterranean warm. It's nice, you know.
Yeah. You
can swim in it. It's cold. By the end of October, September and October, it warms up enough. You go, hey, it's not too bad. It's not like the East Coast. It's not Atlantic Ocean.
Oh yeah, that's cool.
Atlantic, Cape Cod. We grew up around that too. So, but long story short, so Clive comes out. "You can't have a solo in that song. That's too long." It's like, oh my God. We were like, geez. He was worried that we didn't have a hit single ready. And we played him a bunch of the songs we were working on. So in that one in particular, he said, "You got to get rid of the solo." So Brisbane went and got the editing cutting knife with our engineer. He basically cut it out, which you can do. Now you can do it digitally, but the song now has a kind of an interesting build to it. It really only has 2 verses, chorus, and then it kind of goes out.
Yeah.
Got an intro, 2 verses, chorus, out.
Yeah.
Work. But it's kind of odd. No, I mean, I don't mean it. If you listen to it, it's music. So you hear it as music, but I always thought, oh geez, cutting the solo out. Brisbane was pulling his hair out. Oh God. That's music. You know, I see what you mean, but we don't put singles out with solos like that in there.
Yeah.
So the beginning of like, we're not quite seeing eye to eye with the corporate company.
Yeah. Right.
Although we were just going along like, well, whatever, okay, cut it out, you know, if that's going to make a difference, you know.
Right.
So we made that record. It was a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
Let me ask you, did Clive stick his nose in several times?
No, he never did. That was something we had artistic control over.
Okay.
And so when we finally gave the album, we had this song that Jim Keltner played on also. The other one was called All Together Round the Sun.
Yeah.
Which was kind of, as some critics were comparing us to David Bowie and this kind of Ziggy Stardust. And this was kind of a cosmic song.
All right.
Lyrically, if you listen to it.
Yeah.
The first,
I can hear that. Yeah.
It went over some people's heads. Funny story is when we were up at Garcia's house in Stinson Beach, he was married to a mountain girl at the time. And we played them the record. And she came out and said, I don't know about it. That's going to go over some people's heads, I think, because we had a lot of esoteric.
Esoteric. Yeah.
And we we weren't really thinking like, oh, we better just be teeny bopper. We were thinking, no, let's be adventurous.
Mm-hmm.
And David, to his blessing, to his goodwill, just said, no, write whatever you want.
Okay.
So we didn't consider, well, maybe we should contour.
Yeah.
We didn't know that yet, that we should maybe focus in, which came later.
Right.
After that record was out, it didn't break us into the big world, but at the same time, Peter had gotten free to playing with C Train.
Yeah.
He was on the East Coast, and I was.
Yeah.
I always wanted to see the.
I wanted to mention 2 more tracks. I wanted to.
Oh, please do.
Before we move on from the album, "Lady of Laughter." That's another one.
Okay, so I grew up. I was like 13, 14 when I wrote that.
Yeah.
And my mother had some sadness in her. My mother and father had some troubles in their relationship due to, I guess, money things or something. I never was too young to understand it at the time, but she was sad at times, and I felt inspired by that to write. Like I kind of was writing about bringing some happiness. And so Lady of Laughter was this image I had of, like I was Lady of, I come to call on you. It was just my way of like trying to connect with, almost like an angel. But a living angel, somebody that would bring some joy to somebody that's crying out for you. So that's where I wrote it from. And my friend Bill Elliott plays the piano, and he arranged that. His piano playing suggested an arrangement. So what we did with Bill when we were making the record, we enhanced that with orchestration and a great flute player, Yassos. God, I just remembered his name.
Oh, okay.
His last name, but Yassos was this, this is Marin County too, in the 1970s, early 70s. It was definitely post-hippie era, post-60s. So it was a very bucolic out here. Still is, it's nice, but it's, 40, 50 years later, it's grown up. But I still live in this small town, Mill Valley. It's small, but it's small when you try to get out of town. It's really small.
Right.
Road is packed.
Right.
Even that can be funny, but that be that as it may. But Lady of Laughter was really fun. I recorded that with the total. I had written that when I was 14, and I just thought it was still orchestrated, such a good song. And Bill was still playing with us when we recorded that. Before he left and went to play with C Train. But Lady of Laughter.
Yeah. Of the last track, Singing Song. I like that one too.
Oh, that's cool. That was a song that Chris started. And that's another one I helped on the verses, but he had this chord progression. Kind of reminded me of a Van Morrison chord changes.
Okay.
But I just remember hearing it thinking, but I love the feeling behind it. And so we decided to have Bill Elliott play it on piano and write his own arrangement, which he did, and I thought, oh, it's so cool with the piano. It gives it it's just a great sound, it's like, instead of just guitar strumming. So we just let it be that. And we thought it was a closer because it was kind of like, we're going to take our music around the world. That was the whole vibe. And like, we're sailing off into the sunset of of the journey now. We're going on. We're starting into this world. And we hope to see you out there.
Right.
While we were recording that record, we would meet with Clive Davis when he'd come out the St. Francis Hotel in San Francisco. And our record was just finished, and he was playing it for people. We had Simon and Garfunkel were at the and at the hotel at this party, and he introduced us to him. They were high on the Bridge Over Troubled Waters. They're probably their peak at of the duo of them.
Yep.
And Clive said, "Would you play a couple of songs for these guys? Would you, boys?" So we played a couple of songs. Played Hickory Day, my song. He called it Hickory Wind, which was Graham Parsons' song.
Yeah.
Oh, it's Hickory Day, Clive. I mean Hickory Day. Kind of New York accent. And then Chris played a song called If I Only Could, which came out on our first album when Peter.
Right.
Here when we added Peter. But that night, I'll never forget, Paul Simon went, "That's a good song."
Right.
So we didn't record that on our first album. It's almost like Paul Simon could tell that was a good song. A really beautiful melodic song.
Yeah.
Of Chris's. And so so I that was tying into what that song became our only chart to 59 or 69 with a bullet.
Okay.
On the Billboard with Peter with us too.
Okay.
High as it got.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to jump into from the Warner Asylum Records, the three from the 70s, the mid 70s to.
I can tell you the story.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So I always wanted to see the three of us. I'm sure Chris too. So, but I was definitely telling Peter, "Come on out." So while we were still recording our album with David, we had some sessions. We just would go in and book. We had this budget, so we went in and recorded some songs with Peter and us, and tried out doing our 3-part singing. And Peter and I wrote a song called "Pieces on the Ground." I think I wrote basically it on piano, and then he came up with the bridge. I had the chorus, and he came up with the bridge. So, but that got used later as we get to after our Columbia deal. Clive got fired.
Yeah. Okay.
For like misappropriation of funds. I think it's in his book. But that was a strange event in our timing of what happened for our career with Columbia Records. First, they fired him. And before they fired him, he had said to us, since we didn't have a hit with David, our producer, our next album, we had to do it his way, Clive. Which was, "I want you to go to England and record with Mickey Most," that's your producer.
Mickey
Who did Donovan?
Yeah.
And a bunch of other great acts that we were like, "All right, we're on, let's go." Yeah. So, and within the ensuing timeline, he gets fired. They clean house. They don't have any of the same people in the high positions, the president, vice president. They got rid of certain acts. They dropped certain acts. They held us on for a little bit to see if we could come up with something else. We worked with a producer named John Medeiros. Okay. He did not Danny Boy. He did Danny and the Juniors. We did 4 songs with him, and they appear on our Now and Then record, which was something that got released. Outtakes, all our outtakes from Columbia that we didn't use, and the John Madeira and other things that we had demos of got released on our Now and Then disc on Boss Music here. But that jumps ahead to the 1990s when we made that. That's 20 years ago. John Madeira. So these great sessions we did, Hal Blaine on drums, and the great bass player that played with him. Oh boy, now I'm forgetting Hal. Anyway, great session players, and we had some great time doing these demos, but it didn't woo the Columbia people. So basically, we got off the deal. We got out of it because Peter was playing with us, and we had called Geffen. Chris had called Geffen and said, we're working with our brother Peter now as a trio. We wanted to see if you want to hear what we're up to. He goes, "All right, come on over." And he said, "Well, what do you guys want to do?" He said, "We want to make hit records." All right. And he said, "You want to hear some of the stuff?" He goes, "No, that's fine." "All right, I'll take it. The 3 of you." Yeah. So we didn't have to play for him, which
Okay.
we were like, wow, he's already just based on the vibe that we were going to do it as a three. It was like we would be the Rowans now, not Rowan Brothers. We'd be
All
more
right.
like a family name, the Rowans, to differentiate.
Yeah.
So that
Did
was
he?
and that, and we recorded. So
Did
we're
he? Did he? Let me ask you. Did he offer more this time, or did he keep it at the
no,
25?
it was. I have no good point, but we know it was a great deal.
Yeah.
Because we had been trying to shop, the duo again, and that wasn't quite working. We didn't get any real solid hits. Played for a bunch of different little companies and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, Joe Osborne, that's who the bass player was. Hal Blaine and Joe Osborne were the classic LA session guys.
Okay.
And John Madeira knew them, and he brought in a string section too on one of the songs. Great
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Hal Blaine was cool. He took a can of this fingeries that was in the studio that makes a spraying sound. And I doing this song of mine called Speedway Driver. It's kind of a car driver song. And he went, hey, I got a great idea, guys. We record this like as if when a car is going by,
Yeah. Yeah.
So we added that.
And you put that in there.
He thought that was like sound effect.
Right.
Great. So now to that record with Peter. Richie Podler is this LA producer we ended up working with, and his engineer partner Bill Cooper, American Recording, Billy in Studio City.
Yeah.
Fabulous producer. Did Three Dog Night was his big hit. Steppenwolf in his studio, and let's see, Richie could play amazing guitar. He'd done stuff. Now, lately, a friend of mine, a writer up here, Joel Sullivan, writes all these great music books about people and stuff. He turned me on to some of the early Richie Podler records that are out there that he's come across. So he shared them with me. And Richie was back in the early 50s playing like kind of early venture style kind of music, but it wasn't the Ventures, but instrumental guitar and some twang and stuff. Anyway, Richie Podler had the organ that Steppenwolf played in his studio. He had this really cool studio. And he had the old style studio board, which was circular knobs, not the kind you see up and down.
Oh, okay.
This was his own, and he was like, I think, customize his own studio, and he was really proud of that. And he would do mixing like, okay, give me 3 or 4 vocals or 6. Then you leave, and I'll put together out of that the best vocals. And he always thought the Rowan Brothers sang really great. So he'd always have us do multiple tracks because he'd take, oh, that was a great line there. He knew how to splice together or mix together. He wasn't splicing. He was ruling different takes. He would know how to bounce them into a master track and be like, wow.
Yeah.
But he always said, Three Dog Night, they weren't very good singers. He says, I'd have to do hundreds of their vocals to get it right. He goes, at least you guys can sing. So he had big hits with them.
Yes.
And he also at the time had just finished doing Souther, Hillman, and Fure.
Oh, right.
Chris Hillman and Richie Fure.
Richie,
Geffen had put together as like, maybe this could be a Crosby, Stills, and Nash supergroup.
Yeah.
Didn't happen, but good combo. But they weren't, I don't think they were, they had the vibe together like Crosby, Nash, it's camaraderie. They were kind of put together, let's see what happens. And I thought obviously didn't fly.
And then a little later with McGuinn, Clark, and Hillman too. Yeah.
There you go. Forgot about that. I thought about that.
Yeah.
So with Peter recorded this album, we did Peter brought in more of the country rock, although we all love that, but we did a great version of Midnight Moonlight. Yeah. In a country rock version. It's killer to this day, I think. And some really experimental, almost post Sgt. Pepper production style on Thunder on the Mountain, which was we brought in these we had Richard Podler use these Tibetan monk tapes because the song is kind of an esoteric psychedelic song, and these chanting monks are in the song.
Yeah, you can hear that.
I would play through these little Fender amps he had in there at full blast, but recorded with an amp killer sound. It's like, oh, I'll just use that, We're playing a lot of electric.
Yeah.
And that was a really fun record to make. They couldn't find they weren't sure how to market the Rowan Brothers at that point.
Right.
But we did make 2 more records out of that.
Yeah.
That record we didn't have If I Only Could. It was after that that we made recorded our own record. I mean, we produced it ourselves with Billy Wolf, our first engineer, with Grisman, because he was still up here in San Francisco. And that's when we did If I Only Could again for the first time. We waited 2 years to do that. And we had Richard Green play violin on it.
Yeah.
It's Chris wanted.
That's one of my favorites from that period. And if only I could. If I only could. That one is the one that really reminds me of Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young.
Yeah. But making the record was really fun. We got my song "Soldier of the Cross" was on there. That was our sibling rivalry album, we called it.
Right.
With Peter, our second album.
Yeah.
At If I Only Could, and that got up on the charts. And we had a big following in New York area, in New England and Baltimore. So we worked that market a lot. We went to Texas and some areas, but not. It was more the East Coast where we were starting to break.
Right.
But that's as far as it got. It was like 69. But hey, it got up there.
Well, another track that you mentioned a little earlier, "Pieces on the Ground." I really like that.
That was the run with Richie Podler. Yeah, that was really fun to do.
Yeah,
I thought that had a great hook to it too, and I love the vocals. We're always thinking of the 3 of us, with the 3 of us together. It's like, of course, we're going to sing. So we've been able to explore that further on as the years have gone by. There's, some other record, "Tree on a Hill."
Yeah.
Maybe jumping ahead, but that was a record we did with Peter again. As Chris' suggestion, we were like, well, we should do another record, because we'd all done separate things.
Yes.
And working on our own careers, so to speak. And we thought, Chris had suggested we should do this Peter Rowan and the Rowan Brothers, because Peter's roots, he'd followed that so much that he was known in that world more than Chris and I. Well, my own world was more reggae rock at the time, and getting into more of my singer-songwriter, where I wrote My Father's Son. But it's another story. Yeah. But it was really cool to explore that album, "Tree on a Hill," because we did a lot of we did My Fair and Tender Ladies, but we really featured our vocals in a more acoustic setting.
Yes.
So we used acoustic instruments. Kester Smith on percussion, bongos and congas. Unfortunately passed away just the last few months ago. Great drummer, played with Taj Mahal for years, became a really great friend of Peter's and thus us too.
Yeah. Really
great guy from Trinidad. So he knew the kind of South American and Jamaican sound, that kind of feel, Caribbean. Peter and I especially love, and Chris too, but more, I'd say Peter and I really delve into that world, and I still do.
Right. I'll tell you another, you mentioned earlier, Jackson Browne. Beggar in Blue Jeans, lead vocal recalls Jackson Browne for me.
That's cool. That was a song Peter wrote with another writer from Texas, I believe. Billy Bob Bullitt was his name. At least that was how
that's what he got.
Peter would have to tell you what, maybe the title he might have written, but Peter wrote a lot of those words, I'm sure, because they sound like Peter's words. And I know Peter's a great lyricist, so I'm sure he wrote a lot of them. But that was a fun song because we actually used a reggae feel on that. There's my guitar part. We added it, and that was Russ Kunkel on drums.
Oh, okay.
Fantastic. This is another session player. So we didn't have a drummer at the time, but we had our bass player, David Hayes, who played with Jesse Colin Young.
Yeah.
And Van Morrison for many years.
But from that 75 release, 2 more tracks. I like that one of the 3. The first one. I think I like that the best.
Rowans?
Yeah. Me Loving You.
Okay.
Yeah.
Song of Chris's. You like that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. It's another kind of John Lennon-ish.
Yeah.
Beatles influence. Beautiful harmonies, though. I love the harmonies. I love this, that it was based on more of a sound for the chorus. Me loving you. That was like something
Right.
we could
You could
throw our
you can
voice.
tell I gravitate to the more mellow ballads.
Yeah, I like that. Cool.
That's the kind of music I've
Oh,
always
that's cool to
gravitated.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
And then the other one is Old Silver.
cool, man. Thank you. That's what a song I wrote. I had a lot of fun with that. Peter still tells me, God, that's a good one, Lorin. You should do that one.
Yeah.
So we do it on occasion when we get together.
Oh, do you? Okay.
We have, and that'll be a go-to for me, because that was a good one for me, because I really enjoyed writing the lyrics about. It's about fame and fortune, seeking your fame and fortune, or success, and what money can do, or how money is part of your.
Right.
It's like essential to like reaching some kind of success, or goal in mind is to make how you're using money. It's good and evil.
Yes.
In the quest for succeeding, money it's good and evil, and it can draw you down. So that's what the words are about that. And I thought it had a cool country rock kind of groove to it, because it's a finger picking style I'm doing on that.
Yes.
And Richie Podler, once again, he added a lot of. He said, "Do that hook at the end, whoa, whoa," like a vocal hook that it sings out on. We had a great flute player, Jack Bonus, playing with us. Jack had made his own records up here on Grunt Records, which was a band, Grutna, that Marty Balin had signed to RCA Records. Grunt Records was almost
that label.
but they didn't have the. We ended up with the connection through Geffen, and then Clyde. That took us a totally different direction. But Jack Bonus is a great artist. If you've never heard his stuff, you can dig it up. He's quite a good singer. Peter did a song of his with Olden in the Way called The Hobo Song.
Okay.
He used to be a gambling man. It's a great song. Jack's own version is more rock, but Jack had an incredible songwriting ability. Great saxophone player. Little on the edge, personality wise. He could be abrasive, and other times he'd be great. I actually became really good friends with him, and the brothers. We actually had a great relationship with him. Yeah. But he could get weird. But he didn't very much. Yeah. I think when he was with us, we gave him enough room to do something that it didn't mean he had to be the center of attention. He was embellishing, and he loved doing that. So he played sax and great flute. So anyway, that's yeah.
I know a lot of musicians have idiosyncratic, yeah, exactly, characteristics to them. Well, talk a little bit about in the 80s, you and Jimmy Dillon and the Edge.
Very cool. As the Rowan Brothers would go their own ways after our last album, Jubilation, that we did with Peter, we kind of, we reached the point, let's take a break. So, I mean, we're brothers, we'll always play together again at some point. We can always get together. If not, formally, we can we're family. We always had that. So that stayed, albeit, maybe disappointing. It didn't get further on, but I think business decisions could have been made. And that's debatable amongst us, but that has something to do with, the luck and direction. It's like opportunities that knock. So anyway, I was living in Stinson Beach, heavily into the, what I meant to say, just going back for a second, Bigger and Blue Jeans was on the album, The Rowans, and we had played our record release at the boarding house. The next week, Bob Marley was coming in. All along, his album, Naughty Dread, had just come out. So he was on the upswing underground. He wasn't internationally known yet. There was a cult, so to speak, following, I guess you call it that, underground following. And we were definitely in on that. And we told the sound guy, what's going on next week? It's come in early, hang out downstairs, and they do their sound check. Come for the sound check. You can hang out and, come to the show. So we were hanging out downstairs at the bar, and in walk these Jamaican dudes. They kind of walk in and they have this totally Caribbean, otherworldly kind of vibe and look with the drug. Totally different. Like, you're not from here, They kind of see us sitting at the bar, they kind of nod, and they just walk past, going up to get up to the upstairs to do the sound check. So when they're done with their sound check, Bob's sitting in one of those little tiny dressing rooms. I had the album with me because I wanted to show him that, you know. So I went back up and I went and met him. He's playing on a little pig nose amp, just playing his guitar, Gibson Les Paul guitar, just by himself. And I walk in, I go, "How you doing?" I go, "This is me. I'm Lorin. I'm in this. This is my brothers, and I just recorded this." I said, "And thanks to you." I kind of said it to him like, "We used that reggae skank on this song because we love it so much." And he was like, "Ah." I was like you're ripping me off. But I didn't get that at all. But his main words were like, "Okay," he was sussing me out, you know, like. But he was very cool, and it was like, "God, man, it's great to meet you. Just love your music," you know. And so he was like, "Okay." But meanwhile, before we come, we had our local pot dealer in Stinson Beach had supplied me with some Maui Wowie that had come in, which was a really new craze coming out of Hawaii, this green homegrown pot, which became homegrown in the States soon after that. People at Stinson Beach were growing it. People you might know if I mention it. And so I had these spliffs. We rolled the spliffs. You know, representative of what the Jamaicans smoked spliffs. So they weren't the big newspaper cones, but they were.
they weren't the Cheech and Chong.
No, and so when after the first set, they did 2 shows that night. After 2 sets, they did 2 shows. After the first show, I went backstage. And you could smell they were smoking Colombian weed, and I knocked on Bob's side of the I2s. Only the I2s at the time. This I3s really in the next record. 3 girls. So only 2. Judy, I think it was his wife. Rita on the other side of the stage. I didn't see that part of it, but I know that they were over there. I knock on his door during the sound check after the first set, and he's kind of holding court with fans, people that knew him. They're kind of looking at me, mostly black American contingent, a few people, you know, but looking at me like, "Who is this white guy? Who's this guy?" You know, I don't know if they weren't angry, but they were just like, "Who's this guy?" You know. But Bob saw me, and I held up the spliff, and he was like, "Oh yeah, let him in.
Come on in."
And he lit that up. The whole room turned on that incredible smell of homegrown, you know.
Right.
Maui Wowie was the green pot, Colombian dark smell. If I'm, you know, jarring your memory, you'll know what I'm talking about. I had a band. My bass player loved reggae. He lived down the street, and these are the calles, which are these Spanish name for the streets in sandy Stinson Beach town. It's a little village. Used to say population 480. I think it's still there as a kind of a joke. I thought it's not much more than that, maybe 1,000 now or something. It's small. It's not huge, but it's a cool long beach, and these great little houses. And so we lived there, and my bass player played, and I said, "Well, I want to start a band. Do you want to be in a band with me?" And he had a friend that played drums, and they both loved reggae. They were totally into Bob Marley's. So they learned Bob Marley's style, the traditional reggae style of Bob Marley. And the drummer, Dudley Trucks, his nickname was named Keith Glanz, but he went by Dudley Trucks. And Mark Stein on bass. And Dudley could play exactly like how he did the style like Carlton Barrett, who played with Bob Marley. And Mark would play like Austin Barrett, Family Man, on bass. So I had that kind of sound, and you know, we were going for that roots reggae sound, the older roots. And we started a band. We called it the Spliffs.
Okay.
And we played around at these clubs. There was no white bands. One other band called Sneakers or something. The Sneakers, was it? Maybe they were a white reggae band, but we had it was not happening in clubs. So we'd open for something like King Sunny a Day. You know, these African American bands would come, and because we had a little bit of a rep being, and we played the Long Branch. We opened for Toots and the Maytals.
Oh, wow.
Reggae bands in the third world come through to play these little clubs. They weren't well known. Internationally, you know, as they would within a year or two. You know, especially Toots. But that was really cool. So I had that band, the Spliffs, and then it became Jungle Run. We had a great percussion player, African American conga player that played with Mickey Hart's Planet drums.
Oh, did he? Okay.
Amaranth what was it, Amarantha something. God, again, it's been years. So, but this was an instrumental and reggae kind of band, kind of the split, a little more adventurous instrumental stuff that I was writing with that old mandolin.
Okay, yeah.
And after that, it evolved into this other guitar player named Jimmy Dillon came and heard us playing at the surf shop as some gig or something we were doing as the Spliffs or Jungle Run. And Jimmy and I sat down. I said, "Oh man," he sat in and was kind of like, "Hey, this guy's cool." And he just come back from Hawaii where he was living. And he and I said, "Oh, let's get together and play some." So we sat down and just played guitar together. And within a few minutes, we started playing a riff just to see where we could go with something. And his inversion of the chord of what I was playing was this really cool. We looked at each other and went, "That's cool. What was that?" We like
Yeah, it worked.
that as a guitar players, we went, "Oh, that's really cool," and we wrote a song about it. Yeah. And it kind of spawned our first connection, and we hit it off like friends. And so we started, okay, let's be in the band. We'll call it something. We'll do a new band. We're not going to call it the Spliffs because that had not really been something stuck in stone. It was more like, oh, let's just it was evolving. So it was like, okay, let's do. I think Mark Stein said we're called the Average Beach Band instead of the Average White Band.
White band, yeah.
Sarcasm,
yeah.
tongue in cheek, the Average Beach Band, because we weren't like, hey, we just do it, and we could play at this local club called the Over the Hill Bar and Grill. And at that stage, a lot of us in our 20s, early 30s, getting close to the early 30s, playing. A lot of our age group there, So a club, we could make a club out of it, a restaurant. And they'd say, okay, well, we'll have music, but you guys do a Saturday, let's try it. And it worked out great. So we'd have big crowds come in, or a good sized crowd, 100 people or so would be good for out of Stinson Beach on a Saturday night, the Average Beach Band, and we would do cover songs, and we started doing the reggae in there. And at some point it got like, hey, we got to get this more real.
Yeah.
We're not an average beach band. So I said we should call ourselves the Edge. We're on the edge of the world. I always thought Stinson Beach was the edge of the world because we were on the edge right there at the Pacific Ocean, and there's a fault line out there. So I said, let's call it. They were like, all right, it was kind of a name that, I don't know. All right, well, then it ended up being a name we used. And then we kind of stuck with it because people kind of liked it. And then came along the guys, the guy in YouTube called The Edge,
Right, yeah.
News people. I remember they went and friends went to see the Police play. At the Police play at one of these big outdoor venues in the early 80s,
Uh-huh.
Her name came up and said, The Edge will be here. Edge will be here. No, not us. It was I figured out, why would they put our name? I said, oh, it's you too.
Right.
So,
and then every alternative radio station, New Wave, was called The Edge too.
We
had
really fun. The album. This one young guy wanted to start. Our manager had a friend, our regular, just a friend manager, the guy that was manager at the time, had a friend who wanted to put some of the money into make a record. So we did. We made this. It was called Adolescent Records, and we made like a 5-song EP. Yeah. And we started writing these cool reggae rock kind of songs together. And we had a lot of fun with it. We were very popular. Along with Huey Lewis, we were playing this club, Uncle Charlie's.
Right.
At one point, Rick James had come to town to record a record, and he came to the club on his off. He worked at the Sausalito record plant.
Yeah.
In one of his great records, with his whole band. And he befriended us. He thought we were great, and he hooked us up through his management company, which was Jerry Weintraub's company. But he had one of his other guys, his assistant guy, down the ladder, Paul Gongaware, I believe his name was. Why I remember this, I don't know. I remember the name, the member guy. But so he took a liking. We did go make some demos that never came to a fruition for a major deal.
Yeah,
but we
lived. But then in 2013, fast forward, a new CD released under San Francisco Music Club.
Yeah, Jimmy and I decided let's do another record together. Well, let's call it something else. And Jimmy was saying, I think we should make it like maybe the San Francisco Music Club. I said, oh yeah, so we can invite you and I can be the guys, It's our band, and it can have the essence of the Edge, but we can invite other people as a club, kind of a music club. It can have interchangeable people in it. I said, that's
okay.
So we're free to be like, kind of like Steely Dan, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
The main two guys, they've had to play with them to get success, but it was really fun. We had a blast making that. I can't believe it's been 10 years now since. So we still had going, and occasionally we'll get to play together. Probably going to play together in February. Jimmy's been living in Hawaii, but it's coming back.
Okay.
To live in Santa Cruz because he's got family there, grandkids there.
Right.
And his wife, but he's spending time, I think, to Hawaii and there, because he'd lived in Hawaii years ago. So he ended up having a place there and continued to keep it.
I did want to hear about Rebel Sons.
Oh, good.
Yeah, that was a true solo release.
Yeah, that was a follow-up to my father's son, that a company out of New Mexico signed me for their independent release. And my father's son with the title track, because I kind of entered this singer-songwriter. I'd risen to the top of that pursuit of, I was really comfortable writing and singing as a singer-songwriter, more than just a band thing, because the band things change around you. So this was like I was reaching a point. I was writing that song. I had the title based on when my brothers and I would get together. We always talk about, hey, remember what Dad would say, or you remember what, we had an incredible childhood. We still reference everything to what growing up was like, because we have this shared, timeline of memories together.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Figure more than we are what those pictures are on the album. Those will spawn memories, and just our own memories. We all have these incredible recollections of going all the way back to kids, and it's fascinating. I always love to get together. Peter lives down the town from me. We get together pretty often. Yeah. I'll work on stuff with him here that he's got somebody that needs a vocal track of him. Record him right here in my studio. Boom, done.
Yeah. Right.
But anyway, my father's son. I had the title. No, I didn't have the title. I had the song going. Daddy, I had the first verse. Daddy was a dreamer. That was something our Aunt Barbie would say. We'd go, well, how do you remember our dad? Because she lived to be in her 90s or late 80s. Her dad passed away in 1970. So this is in the 1990s. And she would say things like, your father was a dreamer. And we always thought, God, that's a cool line. So I was sitting there writing the song. And I thought, Daddy was a dreamer, how he loved to sing and dance. The life of the party, which my dad would like to be. He was like that. Anytime you get the chance, working days in the textile mills, selling American thread. Always talking about the great big things he was going to be doing instead. That was my dad. He was always aspiring to go somewhere bigger.
Big dreamer, yeah. And
but he had a great family. He raised three great, really happy guys that grew up and play music to this day. Right. Luckily, are still able to do that, and we get along as family. Christmas Eve's coming up. We'll be having Christmas Eve here with the Rowan family.
Okay.
Rowan. And but my father's son. So when I was writing, I said, Pete, you got to come and help me finish this song, since we live close by. And he came over, and I said, I just don't have the name. Daddy, I can't blame you, and I know I can't tame you, but I'll never be ashamed to be your father's son. I went, oh my God, exactly.
It can't be. Yeah.
Right. I didn't know I was going to say that. And there's the joy of writing together. Many songs Peter and I have written together. That was like one of the highlights, because it was kind of like bringing Dad back in spirit.
Right.
And it's celebrating him on a deeper level than just, he was my father. And, it's like, so he's in song. And every time I sing it with my brothers, because the bridge goes, me and my brothers picking guitars all night long. So it's kind of like, yeah. And when we do it together, it's like, of course, here we are singing it together, So that song, that album came out, and that gave me some whole new inspiration to keep going. And then this company out of a good guy up here that was tied into people like John Cipollina and stuff, Mike Somavella.
Okay.
He was getting these record deals for songwriters. Alex Call, good friend of mine, written with me. we've written together. He was in Clover. Huey Lewis, he wrote some songs. He wrote 8675309.
Oh, yes.
We're still in touch and still write together. Mike Somerville had this contact in Germany, and he sent my stuff over. I had to use stuff that I had done outside of the record that I'm from my father's son, but I had my own studio. So I did my own versions. I had some demo versions of some of the songs, and then I just recorded more and put it out. It became Rebel Sons on this German label, which was total gas to me. So I did my own here at my house. It's incredible.
Right.
In the room I'm sitting in. So it's been
years. How satisfying was that, to have complete control like that?
Oh, total blast.
Yeah.
And from that, I got contacted through Elixir Guitar Strings playing the Kerrville Folk Festival.
Oh, okay.
A lot.
Yeah.
And, my band Rattlebox has got Doug Harmon on cello, Barry Sless on pedal steel. Barry's now playing with, anytime Bob Weir goes on the road, Barry's on there too. Don was. And, Rattlebox is a great experimental mix of my traditional songs, but then we go progressive improv instrumentals mixed in. Little excursions into freeform.
Okay. Well, good. That was my next question. Was of Rattlebox a little bit, and then your latest project, Deep Blue Jam.
Yeah.
Now I listened to the tracks on Getting There. Well, Picture Perfect. It has that George Harrison guitar.
Yeah. That's my buddy Kirk playing that.
Okay.
Mandolin. We decided, Kirk said, "Hey man, you should use your mandolin a lot." So we do that now. We do a lot of reggae rock. We're doing a reggae show at the end of this month. Totally a reggae show, but I'll be using the mandolin on a bunch of stuff. We do some Grateful Dead songs. I don't know if it's on that record there, but it might be there. We do a version of Friend of the Devil.
Okay. Yeah, I believe that's on there. Rome is Burning. I like the lyrics on that.
Well, yeah, that we did a video. Have you seen the video?
Yes, I have.
There's a couple of videos we did with a really good photographer, Gary Bose, out here in Mill Valley. So that's a fun band. So that's an ongoing project. And Kirk and I work a lot. We've had access to some music supervisors for TV stuff.
Right.
So everything from soap operas to maybe some film including things, and it's sporadic, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Chasing stuff that we milk the studio. He has a studio, I do, and we just keep writing and creating. If we don't, we think, at least we just keep a body of music. We're probably up to 100 songs now. So
wow. Okay. 3 more tracks. Chasing the Sun.
Yeah.
I like the drum licks on that one.
Yeah. Isn't that cool?
Yeah. Very
that song was, and we liked it because it kind of went into a different tempo. It's a good dance tune too. It's kind of more international,
Right.
A little. It's cool.
Right. And then Lost on You.
Yeah.
Nice track. Great chorus on that one.
Oh, cool. Thanks. That's new. I think it's got a later version that might not be on that one right there.
Oh, okay.
Revised. If you look through our website, it probably shows up.
Probably all right. A later version, and then then one last track, The Long Way Home. I like the lyrics on that one. Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah.
That's cool, man. Well, that's so great that you've.
I like to do a little research and that kind of thing.
I'm glad. I'm glad we have access to stuff online for doing this stuff. That's part of it, right? That we can go. Oh yeah, it's right there. Just go check that out.
There you go. That's the good
part. You a CD. It's like, forget it. Right. I can do it right now.
That's the nice thing about technology. Yeah. And bringing us together like this, being able to do this,
Yeah.
There's some positives. Yeah, there's some positives. All right. Well, I think we covered quite a bit.
Yeah, man.
And appreciate it. I do appreciate it. Lorin, I may be reaching out to your brothers, see what happens there. But if you could,
I'll tell Peter and I'll tell Chris, and I'll ask if it's all right if I give them your contact.
Okay.
And I'll send you their emails to.
That would be great.
And then you can present it to them how you like. And I'm sure I know Chris probably too, but I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how busy people are or what, but it's
that's
it's a good thing.
That's true.
Tell the stories. People want to hear stuff.
That's what I always say. You know, I like to share your stories too. You
And
know?
will you let me know then when it's time I can look at this? That'd be great.
Yeah, I will. It's usually a week or so,
Cool.
week and a half, and then I will send you a copy of it,
Beautiful, man.
and then let every share it with people, and
You got
see
it. Totally will.
see what kind of mileage we get. There you
That
go.
was great, Greg.
Well, I appreciate it. I do appreciate it, Rowan,
Yeah,
and
I love reliving these things. It's good to do because they are things you could write in a book, but until then, it's like down on.
That's right. You know, and sometimes you just trigger something. You know, by talking about one thing, it kind of triggers, memory, like you say. Yeah.
Sounds great. All right.
All right, then. All the best to you. Okay, keep
Happy
in touch.
holidays.
All right.
Cheers.
All right. All right. All right.
Bye bye.
Bye bye. Bye bye for now.
Yeah.